What's up? Niles Lewis from Freeway Music here. I'm going to be doing a series on playing the blues. We're going to go over different aspects of it, but first things first, we're going to go over the fundamentals of all music, especially the blues. We'll go over how to play some rhythm, okay? I'm going to show you some of my favorite ways to play rhythm in the blues, and I'm going to show you some basic ways, maybe intermediate and more advanced way to play. And then show you ways to kind of combine different ones, okay? So, first things first, most people know, and when you go to a jam, most any jam that I go to, there's going to be a million guitar players, and most of them are going to be playing that. So instead of doing that, let's look at other ways to kind of comp around that. So, the first thing first I'm going to do is... Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking a minor triad, so that's B, and I'm in the key of C here, so B flat, E flat, G, and I'm going to hammer on the G string here to my major third, the note E. And now I'm going to catch this F triad right here, which is your A shape for F here. And that's the note C, F, A. And I might catch like a thumb right here with the root. You don't necessarily have to do that, especially if you got a bassist playing. And then you can move that shape. You can literally copy and paste that shape to the 4 chord. 5 chord, 4 chord, 1. Okay, so that's kind of a great keyboardish, keys player way to play over the blues to get you started with some of this. Okay, another way I ended that progression on a 9 chord, the G9. This is one that a lot of players know how to play as well. And C9 in this position would be right here, okay? 9 chords are a really cool way to add like a jazzier element to your playing, even though there's a lot more stuff you can go down that road. So I think a really important thing about learning how to play chords is learning how to play them all over the guitar neck. So most everybody knows that voicing. This is also a C9 right here. And this is 9 A string, 10 D, 9 G, 10 B. And I like to use like chromatic movements, just not skipping any strings and... So what I did right there is I moved around some of these 9 shapes. So when you're like approaching a chord, so say you're approaching this chord right here, this F9, you could slide into it that way, or you can slide into it that way. You can even land on one of these kind of nasty chords before you approach the 1. That takes some time to really get the feel of that right. That's kind of like a funkier approach to playing the blues, more groove-based approach. So a really good way to use these 9 chords as well is to kind of combine it with that and use like not the full chord here. Leave out the 3rd and just play this triad right here, which is B flat, D, G, or 8, 7, 8, and play this kind of vamp right here. So something along those lines. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking this guy and sliding it up a whole step. And when I slide, I'm really using just a sixth, interval 6 shape right here, catching my root, and then come back down. And now I'm using another chromatic movement, and these are just really ninth chords kind of sliding them around. So again, slowly. And then when I come up here, I'm looking for my root F to kind of visualize what I'm doing here. So you could do the same thing, right? So another great way to use this guy here in a little bit more interesting way. I learned this from the song All Blues by Miles Davis, which is one of my favorite standards. That song's in 6, and it's kind of like a... Okay, so I wanted to figure out how to use that playing across 1-4-5 like a traditional blues in 4. So you would kind of speed it up a little bit, and it would sound something like this. So what I'm doing here, and that's pretty quick, that's moving. So you got to really know these shapes, pretty well. So what I'm doing here is so you should be pretty familiar with that sort of thing by now. And then what I'm doing is I'm adding this shape here. Now, how I visualize this shape is it looks like a G minor to me. Now, that's not what chord we're playing, but that's what it looks like to me. And the way that I like to learn things on the guitar are learning, visual like shapes of chords. That really helps me a ton. So what I'm doing here is I'm going, and this is 12, which is the note D, which is the 9 of C. And then we have a G right here, 12 on the G string, and then 11 on the B string here, which is the note B flat. So I'm just moving that around. And you can even get a little more advanced with it. And what I did is I slid that up right here. And really, like, when you're playing blues rhythm, in any rhythm, the key to being a great rhythm player is to not change up things too much. There's a really fine line that you have to walk. You want to change it up some so it doesn't become stagnant and boring to the listener's ear, but you also don't want to get too complex and change it every single bar, because then there's nothing for the bass and drums to lock into, really, if you change it up every single time. So there's a real fine line to walk right there. So the first thing I did was just and when I was trying to develop some of these things, I'm trying to think about playing the guitar as a keyboardist, playing keys, their chord knowledge, the way that they play rhythm has always been really interesting and awesome to me. And I try to replicate that as best I can on the guitar. Some of those shapes and ways that they play are just really hard to do on the guitar. You know, they're two different instruments, but what I'm doing here is I'm going. So that was kind of blown up here a little bit, but moving this shape around can get you a lot of different things. So it's really good to know this shape really well too. And all I'm doing there is I'm just sliding it up a whole step. So this is what I would look at like an A minor shape, even though we're not playing the A minor chord. 14D, 14G, 13B, and I'm going. And if you're playing like in a trio setting with just a bassist and drummer, you can kind of be more busy as a rhythm player because you're the only chordal instrument and you kind of have to be. So that's when you can start making your rhythms more just busier, you know, doing more things, putting more chords in there. So the last rhythm I'm going to show you is kind of, it's like a single note mixed with like a chordal thing. So here it goes. So what I'm doing here is I'm using this using my dominant 7 right there and creating that sort of vibe there. I suggest learning these rhythms not just in this position. You could play it right here too, because it's gonna open itself up to other ideas that you could put in there once you get this under your hands. For instance, if I played it back here, I could stab chords like. Let me edit that, Seth. So I suggest learning these rhythms in as many different places as possible on the neck. And the reason being is that you can do different ideas out of this. You know, you can put different chord stabs and stuff like that. So like you could play it back here too. And that's just the 5 chord right there. So that is a really fun one, and you could do a lot of different things out of this. What I'm doing here is I did it like that for a reason toward the end there, because you can combine all of these, encompass all of these, and that's when you really start playing the blues. Right there, I use my 9 chords to kind of walk down to the 4 right there. So you don't have to use the same exact pattern over the entire 12-bar blues form. When you start using different patterns that I've showed you here, you start kind of creating more of what I'm at least hearing in my head. So again, that part right there, I went. So just using these different rhythms to kind of cover the 12 bars is really interesting to me. Using different chord stabs and not just using 9 chords across the whole 12 bars, not just using single note lines across all 12 bars. I think that's really important. And I'm actually going to show you one more. This is called like the Chicago Blues Box. You hear a lot, ZZ Top and different things like that. It's going to go something like this. So, and then you could actually, I didn't do the Chicago Blues Box over the 5 chord right there for some reason, but that would be like. So that is, and I'm using my thumb over right here. I think that's the easiest way to do it, but I've been playing guitar with my thumb over the neck for a long time. If it's easier for you to grab the index finger, do that. Everybody plays the guitar differently. Everybody has different size hands. Do what's most comfortable for you. So I'm going root, octave, and that's a dominant 7. And I'm hammering my F to G right here, or the 4 and the 5, and catching the dominant 7. So. So that is a pretty easy one to play in like a single note one. I wanted to focus more on chords, but you could throw little chord stabs in with this one. It sounds really cool. So that's a really cool kind of combination one, similar to the using single notes and chords. And up to speed, that would be like a. Cool. So that's just a little intro to some different blues rhythms that I like playing a lot. Hope you dig it. Give us a like, subscribe, comment, and yeah, let us know how these lessons are going. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it, and have a good one.